Right. Yeah, thank you very much to Oceana for inviting me. And I want to thank you guys for coming out in your numbers. This is very inspiring, and from what I heard, we have artisanal fishers, we have industrial, we have government people, NGOs. This is exactly what we need to start solving the problems of fisheries, not only in Chile, but overall around the world. And what I'm going to do here, I'm going to talk about the world as a whole, the fisheries world as a whole, so that you see that you are not alone in this struggle with how to revive and maintain fisheries. It's a global issue, and you are part of the globe, so you have people around the world that you can work with, team up with, share and grow and try to solve the problem. So the title of my talk is How Do We Cope with Social and Economic Pressures of the Fishing Crisis? And I start off by giving you a little outline. So social and economic pressures can be seen in two ways. First of all, the social and economic pressures we face actually makes us go to the ocean, catch the fish, and do what we do with them. And that has consequences, right? Which comes back as fisheries crisis, and that also pressurizes us. There's pressure on us also. So you impact the ocean impacts you, and that's a two-way thing, and we need to have that in mind as we go. So I'll talk about that, and then I start talking a bit about how do we cope. And essentially, we need to recover or rebuild fisheries if we want to maintain the benefits we get. And after you have recovered your fishery, you didn't just go to sleep. That is when the work starts, because you have to put in place effective policies and effective management measures to help you not come back to where you were before, right? So you have to rebuild, you have to recover, and then you have to have good management systems to make sure that you don't return to a depleted system. Now, if you look at the ocean, there are lots of problems, and you see from this picture, right? We have the overfishing, the fact that we catch big fish, and then it goes down, we keep catching less. Daniel Pauli is here, you will hear from him. The picture down there in the corner is from his fishing down marine food web. If you look around, and you saw earlier today, when Lisbeth was talking how fish is shrinking, right? So you have that. But that's not the only thing that happens to the ocean. You have pollution, You have plastic and things going into the ocean. And then you have oil spills and so on happening in there. You have climate change, as I will talk about here, and ocean acidification and deoxygenation. So there are lots of pressures on the ocean. And we have to, when we talk about fisheries, we have to think about these other pressures. And we have to work with other sectors in order to relieve the pressure on the ocean and therefore our fish stocks. So that is the kind of general framing here for you. Now, if we go back to fisheries, this is a picture of the global catch. So this is the total amount of fish that we have been taking since 1950, when official global data started being reported to the UN FAO, Food and Agricultural Organization. And that's the official statistics. You can see that from 1950, we started with taking about 10 million tons of fish, and this has increased very rapidly initially. And now we are seeing a kind of stabilization. We're seeing that the fish is, we are not catching as much as before, right? There's stabilization globally, which is an indication that somehow there's no more fish to catch. We started catching close to coast, right? And then we deplete that or reduce it, and then you go further and deeper, and now there's no place to go. So we're about stabilizing or even declining. The other curve is about the amount of fishing effort, the fishing power we take out to fish. So whilst we're increasing fishing power, boats and people we go out with, we are not catching much, right? So if you are an economist and you see this picture, you really start to worry, because there's a problem here. You are spending a lot of energy to catch the same or less, right? So your marginal contribution to all your effort is not bringing in much. And so that is a global picture, and I think we heard a bit about that in Chile here, and we'll hear more later today. And so this kind of picture made me and my group to look deeper into how commercial fishing is actually doing in the world. And this is a report that we got which has lots of information on the top 1,000 fishing companies in the world from 43 countries with a total annual revenue of about $21 billion, which is about a quarter of the total gross revenue we make from global oceans, about $80 billion. So that's quite a representative group of companies. So what we did was to analyze the reported pre-tax profit of these companies. And this is reported in this report mainly to attract investors to come in and invest in the fishery. So that gives me some hope that the data here is quite reliable, right? Because if you want to attract investors, you don't say that you don't make profit, right? Because that's what they come for. So quick, just to give you a short picture of what we found. This graph plots the pre-tax profit in terms of fishing companies on that side of the graph and in terms of the countries in which the companies operate on the other side. And what you see quickly is that about 80% of these 1,000 companies reported zero profit, almost zero profit, pre-tax profit. And only a few are making money, and some are actually losing money. And in terms of countries, that's what you see, about close to 80%. So this picture very quickly tells you that our companies, fishing companies, according to this data reported by them in order to attract investors, are not making that much money. Some of them are even losing money, but they are still in business. And then you ask yourself, why is this possible, right? Usually you get out of business if you are not making money. So why is this? And part of the reason we found looking at the data is actually fisheries subsidies. Many governments around the world actually support fishing by giving taxpayer money for all sorts of reasons, social reasons, cultural reasons, or whatever. But that partly explains why people would keep on fishing, even though they don't make real cash. And this is data. This could be a whole talk. This is just to give you some of the numbers we have estimated, the amount of subsidies. And if you can see, we categorize subsidies into beneficial, capacity enhancing, and ambiguous. Essentially, not all subsidies is bad, right? And there are subsidies that can help you manage your fishery sustainably, and we call them good. But there are subsidies that encourage more fishing than you would normally, like fuel subsidies. And so we categorize them there. And when you look at this, the bulk of the subsidies we give are actually capacity enhancing. They lead to more fishing. And so that is something to watch. I'll come back to that later. So in this summary of the world, we actually calculated what the returns to fishery in the country is. If you take in the total revenue they make, the total cost of fishing, and also the subsidies they get from government, because this is money you transfer, right? So you have to account for that. And when you do that, this is what you see. The more red your country is, the more net loss from the fishing. And if you look at that graph, Chile actually is showing negative loss. So if you take the whole fishing enterprise and all that the government pumps in and the cost of fishing, actually, the nation is not making money out of the fishery. And we can discuss this. I know there will be contestants here, but let's see how this goes. So that is the kind of picture we're seeing in different parts of the world. There are a few countries that still make money, even if you adjust for subsidies. Now, this is not all about money only. In this paper, we also try to estimate how much we are losing because we are not managing our fisheries effectively, you know. And in total, by mid-2000s, we estimate that we are losing about 10 million tons of fish a year globally because we are not managing our fisheries well. And I have the regional estimates here. In South America, we are talking about 1 million tons of fish roughly at the end of our estimate. At some point, it was more than that. Now, to give you an idea of how serious this is in terms of food security and meeting the needs of people, 10 million tons of fish is equivalent to 10 million mature cows that are being lost. So in this region, farming cows is very important. So we are losing about 10 million tons of cows because we are not managing our fisheries effectively. And in this region, from this study, about 1 million a million mature cows. So that has huge food security implications. If we are able to manage better, recover our fisheries, we will get more. That's what all the science is showing. And we did something in this paper. What we did is, if we were to take the lost fish because of mismanagement, and we were to feed people with just fish, we could feed close to 20 million people around the world who are currently malnourished. So there's a big food security implication when we don't manage our fisheries well. Now, given this, I've quickly shown you the money side and the food security side. The job side is one thing, because the more fish you have, the more jobs. Everything being equal, you will employ people more and they earn more, and so on and so forth. So then the big question is, should we recover fisheries or should we not? This is a big question. And whenever we say we should try to recover or rebuild fisheries, these are some of the questions that people hit us with. They say, is it possible? Is it possible to rebuild your fishery? And in general, it is possible, except if you have overdone this, if you have changed the system so much that it cannot recover. There are situations where we overdo things. The habitat is so destroyed, the fish don't come. But in general, if you leave nature alone, it will come back. This is a natural, almost a natural law, right? So that is, and how much effort do we need to cut? This is important for politicians, right? How many people do we need to send to take out of the fishery? Because this is a politically difficult thing for politicians to do. They want to know that. And that is a legitimate question. And how long do we need to wait? How long do we need to wait? We heard that 5 years will not do for, is it mackerel or hake? Do you need to wait 10 years? And what do you do whilst you are waiting? These are issues we need to tackle in order to get movement. And the last point is that the benefits and costs are not shared equally, right? So if people put effort to rebuild now, who will benefit in the future? And you need to think about that, to work through that, in order to ensure that you get movement. And in our paper, the one I showed you, the 2012, we actually spent time thinking about this and coming up with ideas on how governments and societies can really get movement to rebuild the fisheries. Because once you're able to do that, the benefits will come. The problem is dealing with these barriers and obstacles in order to release you to gain from the benefits. So the same paper I cited, if you were able to rebuild, even after paying people, either retraining people or compensating people or buying people out, you are able to turn the global fisheries map into all black. We take out all the red. You can do it in theory, and this is based on data, empirical data. So it is possible. Our biggest problem is how to do it, how to really get movement. And a number of us will be talking about that, and you've already heard some earlier today. So Chile can be black in terms of making money from the fisheries if we do the right thing. Now, recovering depleted fisheries is good business. That's what most of us who have looked at this have come to this conclusion, including the FAO and different groups around the world. So benefits are bigger than the cost of rebuilding. And then people ask me, if what you say is true, why are we not massively rebuilding all around the world? So I identify a few points here that are possible barriers and that we need to deal with. The politics of fishing effort reduction is difficult. Every politician will tell you that. If you go to a fishing community, I was in the Canadian Parliament a couple of years ago, and one of the parliamentarians actually went after me from Prince Edward Island. He said, Rashid, do you really go to fishing communities? I said, I do. I just came from one. Do you tell them you want us to take subsidies from them? I said, I do. And he said, do they like it? Of course they don't like it. I said, I would love subsidies too, but that is not the point. If you say you want to manage this fishery sustainably, then you don't give harmful subsidies. It doesn't just work, right? So that is the kind of thing. And we have to help our politicians, give them the material and the evidence and the support they need to push this through. Waiting time for recovery is an issue. So we need to find a way to pay off, actually, the current fishers one way or the other, either retraining or buying vessels in a way that it works, because it's not easy, and so on and so forth. There are ways you can ease the pain on current fishes so that we can rebuild our stocks. And then you have to watch the cost and benefit distribution also. Now, more points here. You have to fix the economics. I say you have to fix the economics. And one of them is, when we look at all these negative profits that's supported by subsidy, it's kind of weird in a way, because if you are doing a commercial enterprise, you should be able to stand on your own feet in general. That's what we will all expect. So you shouldn't need government taxes to do this. In fact, in the case of fisheries, because of the nature of the common property nature of the fish, if you look at economic theory, you don't give subsidies, you actually give them negative subsidies, right? Because then you are able to move the incentives so that we'll get what is societally beneficial. And taking out fishery subsidies, I'm just saying, I'm not even saying take out the money out of the community. You can keep the money there, but let it do good work rather than destroy the resource base. You can use the subsidies money to do all sorts of things. For example, you can actually pay fishers to clean up the ocean from plastic, right? So then our public money is being used to keep the incomes of fishing people, which is important, to clean up the ocean, which is important, and to let the fish grow. So you can do win-win things if you think through this thing well, rather than fuel subsidies so people will go and catch fish, which is not there, right? So, yeah. Now, this is what I really love about the crowd here. I understand you come from industry, from small-scale fisheries, government, and so on. I think one of the things we need to have in order to solve our sustainability problem is getting people to work together. We need to cooperate. Because fish are shared. Fish are shared. You saw mackerel. They are shared not only in Chile, but with other countries in the region, and even with the high seas. So you need to work together, because if you alone do the right thing and the others are not doing the right thing, it doesn't work. So cooperation, working together is crucial. Some people think that all you need is to do ITQ, individual transferable quotas. They may work somewhere, but they are not foolproof on themselves. Because if you have an ITQ system, individual transferable quota, and people are able to trade, one person can cheat and all the others will suffer and you will make money. So what you need is cooperation and working together for any management system to work. So that's one point. Illegal fishing, I think it will be mentioned here. We really have to find a way to make illegal fishing uneconomic. Economists will tell you, Gary Baker, who started this business, I think he died earlier this year, Gary Baker of the Chicago School, he talked about economics of criminality. Essentially, economists will say most of the illegal fishers engage in this because it pays. Because it pays. They make money and they are not caught, there's no penalty. It's good business. So that we need to change, and we can discuss this more. It's a picture of reported illegal fishing apprehended, where people are caught and taken to court. So we collected the data. And you can see that it happens almost everywhere in the world, except in New Zealand, right? Yeah. I said it happens everywhere in the talk, and there was a lady from New Zealand, she took me on right away. She said, no, not in my country. See, we don't have in New Zealand. I had to concede. I conceded, but then I quickly said, maybe it's because you guys are good at hiding the data, right? So you can never tell. Yeah. So now, this is one important point, and again, this is a whole lecture, but I just want to drop the idea. Part of the problem we have with managing our environment, not only fisheries, is this idea that was captured very well by Nietzsche, of all people, many years ago. The way we run the environment, I think, kind of captures what he says here. He says egoism is the law of perspective, as it applies to feelings, according to which what is closest to us appears to be large and weighty, while size and weight decreases with distance from things, both in spatial and in time sense. This is a quote I took out. And the reason I took it out, it connects to the economic idea of discounting. I don't know how many people have heard discounting as used by economists before this lecture. Discounting, yes. It's like going to the shop, right? They discount the price. This is a serious economic concept. And all that it says is that values coming to you today, if you are going to receive 1,000 pesos today, that 1,000 pesos is more valuable to you if you get it today than if you get it in 5 or 10 or 20 years' time. So the further away the payment, the less weighty it is for you. And this is a concept that is deep in economic analysis. And what it does is actually, in practice, we are valuing the fish for our children and grandchildren as if they are our fish, right? Because you use the time scale of the current generation to value everybody's fish. And that leads to putting very small weight on future generations' fish. And we need to think about the way we value our environment. And I think this is a fundamental problem. Think about this. The people who were in this room, let's assume there was this room 100 years ago, the Chileans who were here. The fish we will all eat today and this week will be valueless to them. And that is true. They are dead and gone. It doesn't mean anything. But for us, it's very important. So you cannot use their time scale of 100 years ago to value the fish to us. And that is what we do in principle. If there was time, I would go deeper into this. But I think valuation is very fundamental. The way we look at the environment will need to change in some way if we are to achieve our goal of holding this planet for the future generations also, and not destroying it. Final point, insurance against buying insurance, and this goes to marine protected areas. The senator mentioned that there's only 0.03 or so % of Chilean waters that is protected. I mean, if you go to Wall Street or what's the name of your stock market, no financial person will do that. Put all their 99.7% of their portfolio in one thing, fish everything, versus only 0.03 protected. No, you won't do that. You split your portfolio to protect it. So you buy bonds or even cash to protect you in case something happens. And this is one key reason why many economists like me support protecting our oceans, a good chunk actually, because then if we make mistakes where we fish, we have something to kind of buffer and support us into the future. So please, let's think about how to use marine protected areas to support our work. How to cope? Recover fisheries. That's one of the ways to cope with the pressures. I mean, because at the moment we are all hanging on the little fish that we have left because we have overfished. If we allow this to grow, then there will be more room for more people, more food for people, and more money to be made, actually. And so we need to do that. And to be able to do that, we need to tackle the politics of fishing effort reduction. And there are many ways you can do this. You vote senators like the gentleman there who cares to come and sit here with us, right? That's one way. We support them. We give them the science that they can argue with. We let them realize that fish is actually more valuable than one. Mining is big here, right? I was in Namibia 2 years ago. I gave a talk at the National Fish Day, and the fisheries minister was sitting in front. I said, you know what, sir, when you go to the next cabinet meeting, tell your fellow ministers that fish is more valuable than diamond. In Namibia, that's a big thing, diamond. And they were shocked. Come on, what are you talking? What do you mean by that? I said, 2 reasons. You know, fish, if you manage it well, you can continue to have benefit from it through time, right? All generations can benefit. It's renewable if you do it properly. And mathematically, if you have anything that gives you benefit, even if it is this small, if it goes to infinity, then the benefit is infinity, right? That's one reason. The second reason is that if you look at diamond in Namibia, DBS controls everything. They take the diamond and it's gone. Namibians don't even know where it goes. Few people benefit, but fish, you catch it, you take it home, you feed your family. Very valuable, 2 reasons. And the minister loved this, so I'm sure he had fun in his cabinet meeting. So we have to give our politicians really good reasons that they can use to argue. And to get movement, like I said, we need to soften the blow on current fishers. We need to find a way, whether people who want to move out of fishing, and they can be quite a number. We did a survey in Hong Kong. We surveyed fishers and said, under the right conditions, if you have other things to do, would you like to leave the fishery or not? 75% said they would, right? So there are people who want to live. There are some who see this as their way of life, fine. Their portion, and so if we can help those who want to live and do other things, that will help us make movement. Last point, implement effective policies and management. Fix the economics. Commercial fishing should be commercially viable. No subsidies, really. Use the subsidies to do other things. And please buy insurance to protect yourself from problems and catastrophes. Thank you very much for your attention.